Welcome to part 3 of building the PRR Doodlebug. I intended to make this the final part, but development never goes as planned. In part 2, I arrived at a buildable prototype, so now we shall see how that fares in brick. Spoiler, not well. Before that, let me elaborate a bit on why I did some of the things I did with regard to the internal structure. I mostly talked about the what instead of the why in the previous episode. If I apply force on a layer of plates suspended across two bogies, it will clearly start to sag. In a perfect Physics 101 world, I would reinforce this assembly with some kind of truss, which prevents it from bending. In practice, I have to build a compromise without the diagonal braces, but with the assumption that the corners remain square. The large number of pillars and related reinforcement attempts to ensure that. I no longer have to test a larger flywheel since I no longer have room for one, but I do need to test the construction and the drivetrain. I did not film the assembly of any physical prototypes, but I did film their operation. This structural mechanical test serves a third purpose. I tried to build it in the proper colors where possible as a means to start gathering parts for the final build. At first blush, the structural integrity and mechanical functionality both seemed fine, so I took it out for some longer test runs at one of our Trains in the Park sessions. Here I started running into flywheel stability issues. It would start to vibrate while spinning up, and occasionally it would not settle down unless I stopped and restarted the motor. I did not consider this a big issue at the time, but I made sure to at least look at it before ordering parts. The shaft with the flywheel needs to rotate through 3 fixed points, including the motor output. I joined several axles together with universal joints, as even a slight bend in a solid shaft or the car body would add enough resistance to stall the motor at the lowest speeds. In the first iteration of the structural mechanical prototype, I put a universal joint at each end of the flywheel, and I suspected that excessive slop contributed to the excessive vibration. In the second iteration, I replaced the universal joint on the motor end with a normal axle connector. I also swapped the old Technic wheels with a modern equivalent in case the new ones had better balance, though I did not have a good way to test that theory. I did perform a simple experiment to verify that both types of wheels have approximately the same rotational inertia. They accelerate down a ramp at basically the same rate. Finally, I mocked up more of the roof to strengthen the body. All these changes seem to fix the vibration issue, at least in my controlled test environment. After After testing the structural integrity of a few more greebles like the doors and the steps, I decided to order parts for the final build. I talked about gathering and ordering parts in my Brickficiency video, but unfortunately, Brickficiency has not worked for quite some time now, most likely due to a change on the Bricklink end. Fortunately, the Bricklink auto-select mechanism seems to work reasonably well, though I have little way of verifying if or when I get the best price. If I feel like a selected shop has excessively high pricing, I will try blacklisting it and rolling the dice again. I built this model to consume leftover parts, especially brown ones from the dismantled P54s, but I still had to order quite a few. When everything arrived, I assembled what I thought was the final build, and I took it to the next lug meeting, the first physical meet in a while, for filming. Here, my earlier issue returned with a vengeance. The flywheel started vibrating at around half power and almost never settled down. It got bad enough such that I could see the vehicle shaking and losing performance. The vibration saps power from the drivetrain, and it does so unevenly, causing the wheels to slip. This footage doesn't capture the shaking that well, but it does capture the surging from wheel slip. I tried messing with the setup a bit more, but I had had enough. I finally removed the flywheel, and the model ran much smoother and much faster. Still, while I had this drivetrain in place, I took the chance to measure the pulling performance without the flywheel. Since the heaviest components, all the electronics, sit closer to the unpowered bogie, the 790-gram model only has 340 grams over the powered bogie, and it can only pull about 90 grams. I can improve this after getting rid of the flywheel, but as a sanity check, the 340-gram EMD Model 40 also pulls about 90 grams. Again, I will link the updated train pull spreadsheet in the video description. I do have a potential solution for smooth acceleration without the flywheel, but I will explore that in part 4, along with testing train motors and potentially making instructions. On that note, this is the end of part 3. Please consider subscribing if you like what we do, and have a nice day.
So it happens.
It does. It does. No, I have some very specific parts that I need that are big in block plates.